Hey, everybody. How's it going? Happy Friday. Happy December, almost the end of the year. How you doing, Andy?
Doing well, man. Flying by the seat of my
Good.
pants today. All things Copilot. How are you doing?
Oh, good. Yeah, same thing with me. It's been like just back-to-back meetings, like talking about Copilot just over and over again, from 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock my time, all day, all evening, all Copilot all the time. So both of us just came from another meeting into this into this live stream. So sorry we're a few minutes late, but we're excited. It's the much anticipated follow-up to our last segment about Copilot. We talked about Copilot like, I don't know, oh, it was like 3 days before it hit GA, so we couldn't technically show anything yet. Just kind of talking theoretically about it. Now that it's live, we want to take you on a deep dive journey where we're going to show off Copilot, talk about what it can do, and I want to take a collaborative slant to it this time because we talked about, Word and Excel and PowerPoint and Outlook and like those things that are kind of like personal productivity stuff. But what we haven't covered yet is things like Whiteboard, Loop, Microsoft Teams meetings, stuff like that. So I I'm hoping that we can focus a little bit on that and like actually show hands on. Does that sound like we can pull it off, Andy?
We're gonna try, and we might crash and burn along the
Yeah.
way, but I think we can deliver.
Yeah, let's see how warm we can get these data centers going with our Copilot prompts. So we're going to be demoing from your environment, Andy, because Mark Cashman made a joke about this, like, "Oh, you're going to demo from John's and EY." Like, no, we're not. Andy has a nice, clean test area in his environment at work that he can do things a little bit safer than I'm able to. So we're gonna live vicariously through Andy's Copilot fingertips and see what we can do today. Before we get started, I do want to plug something that I mentioned. Mark Cashman, he may be joining us at some point on here, but Andy was recently on the Intrazone podcast that Mark Cashman is a host of, and good friend of ours. We've known him for years, and I've followed the Intrazone podcast for years, even before I knew Mark, before I became an MVP. So it's really exciting to see you on there, Andy. You did a great job, represented yourself and the community very well, I thought. So congratulations for being on that.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. That was a fun conversation with Mark. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on the Interzone. That's something that was a bucket list item for me. It was pretty cool to be able to do that. But it was a great
Yeah.
conversation. If you haven't heard it, go and check it out. Had a great time talking all things Copilot, and we even threw in some Power Automate and some AI. Talked a little bit about some of the Midjourney stuff that I've done. Thanks, John, for getting me turned on to Midjourney. That's pretty cool. But appreciate
Cool.
the shout out there. That was a great conversation. Had a lot of fun with that one.
Yeah, I'm finding a link right now. If anybody hasn't watched or listened to that episode of the Interzone, I'm going to drop that in there. Obviously, subscribe to it. Don't just listen to that single episode, but it's a good one to start with.
Hey, and a big shout out to all of our friends in the community join in. Phil, Ralph,
Yeah.
Heidi. There's Daryl, Michael. I saw Will in there a little while ago. Yeah, we got a bunch of friends turning out for this one. This is really exciting. Glad you're all here. It seems like I've been blasting social media for like the last week or two on this, and like the engagement's been
Hmm.
really good. So I'm really happy everybody's here to check this out and see it live.
Yeah, awesome. And as always, it's going to be recorded. I don't know if we've got quite as clean of section breaks, but if we got a section break, maybe we'll do what we did last time, which is we'll kind of take a pause and then do a little bit of an intro. Another follow up, just housekeeping before we get going, is one. If you watch the recording of our last session or our early November session about Copilot, on my YouTube channel, I put chapter markers in there because it's 2 hours long. So there's a chapter for each product. And then if you subscribe to Andy's channel, if you search for Andy, um, then he has been uploading those segments. He chopped them up as short individual standalone videos that you can take, a little bit more bite size type of chunks from. So, just want to also plug that as well, that we're trying to make it a little bit more consumable, rather than just simply long form content and saying, good luck, 2 hour video. So, cool. All right. I'm going to go ahead
I'm
and turn
gonna
off the
grab that
overlay
link
and
and throw it in the conversation for everybody.
yes. Yeah. Please post your link to your YouTube channel. We'll get that going. And then, as always, you can also follow me and Andy on LinkedIn as well. Andy's posting lots of things on LinkedIn. There's the QR code to connect with him on LinkedIn if you want. And then I'll switch it over to mine if you guys want to connect with me on LinkedIn as well. I'll periodically kind of bring those up. And there's a new feature, Andy, that actually showed up in Restream. If somebody scans the QR code while you're live, it actually comes up with an alert on the stream that says that somebody scanned it. So that's kind of cool. If somebody wants to test that out, we can see what that little thing looks like. There we go. It comes up in the middle of the screen and says someone scanned it. So pretty neat stuff. Okay, Andy, you are driving. You're our pilot for this co-pilot journey today, where we'll pick up where we left off. So where do you want to jump in, man?
Well, for everybody joining in, feel free to ask some questions along the way. We kind of have a loose outline that we're going to talk about, like the different apps and services, and then we're going to step through some stuff and some lessons that we've learned. We haven't really had time to rehearse this, so we're going to be piloting and building this ship, as we're airborne. So ask some questions in all the various chats. That's really helpful for us. If you want to see something, we'll do our best to accommodate. But with that, we'll do an intro here. So we got a nice clean chapter and break for the videos we're posting on our YouTube channels, and then we'll go from there. So welcome to 365 Deep Dive. He's John. I'm Andy, and today we're going to do hands-on with Copilot for Microsoft 365. This is a continuation of our conversation back at the end of October, where we talked about what Copilot was capable of at a high level. Today, we're going to try and get hands-on with that. So just kind of getting started, the point of this deep dive is we want to show you what Copilot for Microsoft 365 is capable of. We're going to concentrate on Microsoft 365 chat, Copilot in Teams, Copilot in Office, Word, Excel, PowerPoint. We're also going to try and cover Copilot in Loop and in Whiteboard over the course of the next 2 hours. So if that's cool, thanks for being here. Like and subscribe to our channels. I think it's obligatory that we say that now. But with that, we'll just dive into Copilot for Microsoft 365. As if you're new to this and you've never seen it before, Copilot is the evolution of the modern workplace, for lack of a better term. Combines large language models with the Microsoft Graph and Microsoft 365 apps and services. We're right now celebrating the 1 year anniversary of ChatGPT, and I think that's really where this AI explosion came from. And here, a year later, we're starting to see some real integration of this into real world use cases in the enterprise, as well as in our personal productivity. So over the course of probably the last 6 or 8 months, Microsoft has introduced Copilot. Name has changed a few times. I think they've kind of settled on Copilot for Microsoft 365. I haven't even had a chance to update the slide deck yet. This is relatively new. But they're leveraging OpenAI and large language models, basically GPT 4.0 and the ChatGPT model against the Microsoft Graph. That provides a grounding model. So what that means is you can use natural language and you can ask a question. hey, summarize this document, or I don't understand the language that's being used in this contract, or can you analyze this data and give me some insights? And you can use natural language to do that. But what Microsoft's doing is taking that large language model and its capabilities and leveraging that against the Microsoft Graph, which is your data. So they are security trimming it. It only works with the data that you have access to. None of your data goes back to train the model. It's not even accessible by Microsoft engineers. But the Microsoft Graph takes your prompt, your request, and leverages that against your data. It then sends that to the large language model for processing, and then the output comes back to the graph, and it reviews that one more time, does a final security check, and then it sends it back to the app where that request actually initiated from, whether that's Microsoft 365 chat or Copilot in PowerPoint or Copilot in Word. And so
Mhm.
the Copilot service for me is the game changer here. I can use ChatGPT, I can use the graph, I can use these apps and services, but Copilot brings it into one single unified experience. And that, I think, is the value proposition that you have for working with Copilot in Microsoft 365. It really is magic. Like once you get into it,
Mhm.
it's embedded across all the different Microsoft apps and services. We're going to dive into those in just a moment. This went GA for uh, general availability November 1st, but there's a minimum of 300 seats. That's today. There's a blog post that says Microsoft is looking to work with smaller businesses in the future, but there's no date on that. But if you are in an organization that can purchase a 300 minimum license, you can get Copilot in your environment today. So if you're a company of one, you can't use Copilot today, but hey, you can live vicariously through us as we drive through this and look at our previous recordings and what we're going to talk about here today, and learn from there. But it did go GA on November 1st, and for smaller businesses, that is TBD. But Microsoft has publicly said on a blog that they are looking to roll this out for smaller businesses in the future. So with that, what can Copilot do? And this is kind of where we're going to start our journey here today. So Copilot is deeply embedded into Microsoft Teams, Outlook, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and additionally OneNote, Whiteboard, Loop, and we called out Microsoft 365 chat twice because in our experience, and I think we agreed on this last time, Microsoft 365 chat is probably the most powerful Copilot experience that we have today
Yeah.
for Microsoft 365. It's your virtual assistant. This is the closest thing that I've seen to Iron Man's Jarvis. It is that powerful, and I think that's where we're actually going to start off our journey here today. Is working with Microsoft 365 chat, show you some ins and outs there, and then we'll step through the other apps that you actually see on the screen, and we're going to go through the capabilities that are here. The capabilities are documented on Microsoft's service descriptions, and there's a couple other blog posts. But for the most part, we've summarized that here in our PowerPoint, and we're just going to use this as the basis of the presentation as we move through it. So I think this is a good place to transition into Microsoft 365 chat, and
Mhm.
then go from there. I did notice looks like a few any questions coming through in the chat before we move on.
Yeah, there's a pretty good one here that I think leads into the actual live demo is, hey, is it as fast as ChatGPT? They've noticed that like Bing chat is pretty slow. Um, I answered this in the chat, but in my opinion, I've been going through like the early access program and stuff. It's been pretty slow and it had some, some timing issues and some, sorry, I can't do that right now. I've noticed since it's actually hit GA, things are working a lot better. I do get more, reliable responses, obviously. But it's gotten a little bit faster for me. What I've noticed personally is that the M365 chat experience seems to be the faster responding of all of them. It usually, I was playing with it this morning actually, and it was bringing in entire paragraphs at a time. Like rather than, ChatGPT, it does like a word at a time and you watch it type. with M365 chat, it was doing like whole paragraphs for me, which is a little bit quicker than watching it type. But we'll show that live. You'll see nothing is sped up. That's the nice thing about a live stream like this.
And to add to that, keep in
Mhm.
mind it's leveraging the Microsoft Graph. So you go into the service to
Yeah.
work with it. It's going to the graph and then like going out and pulling that data depending on where you are.
Mhm.
Whether I'm in the Copilot for Bing Enterprise experience or if I'm in M365 chat. So that's why you might see some slowdown inside of there. But to John's point, it's getting smarter every day and it's getting a little faster every day.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
we are literally on the plane in the air and they are still building the plane as we are embarking
Data
on this
center
journey.
resources like crazy. One thing I've heard a lot, there's not a question in this chat, but I've gotten questions from my own organization is like the Microsoft Graph. What is that? It's a little bit complicated of a technology or a topic. So I actually today I find that it's best to try to explain things with an analogy. So I threw that question at M365 chat. Maybe that's the first thing you can try, Andy. I asked it to explain the Microsoft Graph with 3 analogies. And the best one that it came up for me, if you're struggling with like what the heck is the Microsoft Graph, um, Bing chat or M365 chat said, think of it like a spider web. You've got a spider web with all of these threads and they're all like kind of interconnecting, right? They have all these connection points. Those connection points are your data, right? It's a file you've been working on, and that is connected to 3 different people that you're working with that file on. And that person that you're working with, they are also connected to you with all of these emails that they've sent you over the past 30 days. And, you just had a chat yesterday with this person. All of that kind of web of stuff that you're working on and who you're working with, those relationships, that is the Microsoft Graph. And Copilot acts almost like a spider on that web, where a spider can basically traverse or it can move around that web using those threads and hitting those connection points. That's what Copilot is able to do, is it's able to go through the graph, through that web, and find all of the little relevant pieces that give you back a better response. And then it's able to present that to you with like, here's my answer, but in addition to my answer, here's where I got these answers from so that you can check my work and make sure that it's accurate. So that was a pretty cool way to kind of get an intro to the Microsoft Graph, I thought, this morning.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a great use case. So using Copilot to explain that in some simplified terms, and you really hit the nail on the head. I think when you asked it for 3 analogies, this is a
Hmm.
conversational tool, and you can tailor the responses to output in a whole bunch of different ways. Explain it to me like I'm a fifth grader. Explain it to me like I'm writing a level 300 presentation for the European SharePoint conference.
Hmm.
Um, Explain it to me using baseball terms, and it does a really good job of being able to do those things. So,
Yeah.
um, with that, why don't we um, do the intro here? This will be our cut point, and then we're going to dive into M365 chat and
Cool.
kind of talk about what's going on there. So, welcome to 365 Deep Dive. In this video, we're going to be talking about Microsoft 365 Chat. This is the Copilot for work experience that is the closest thing to your virtual assistant that you're going to get from the Microsoft Copilot services. The Microsoft 365 chat actually surfaces in a couple of different ways, and we'll showcase those different ways first, and then we'll step through some of the capabilities. So just to point out, I'm actually at Microsoft 365 Home, and along the left-hand sidebar, there with a Copilot license, I see M365 chat, and that takes me to the first endpoint for our Copilot experience. So I'm able to access and work with Copilot or M365 chat and Copilot here. If I'm in an Edge browser, though, I can open up a new tab. And then if I go into what was formerly the Bing chat for enterprise, it's now being rebranded Copilot Bing chat enterprise. If I'm here, there's a toggle up at the top, and I can click on M365 chat, and it opens up that experience right here inside of my web. So that's the second endpoint that we have. If you're working with Edge also, you can open up Copilot in the Edge browser if your organization supports that. That brings up that M365 chat / Bing chat enterprise experience as well. This can travel with me, so I can go from here to other apps and services, and that's going to travel with me in that sidebar, versus this is a destination. I have to go to the page and actually work with it. And then the last endpoint that you're going to get with this is actually inside of the Microsoft Teams. So if I'm in my Microsoft Teams client, we can actually install this as an app. So you go to apps along the left-hand navigation rail, and we're just looking for like M365. And then you'll see the chat, and you can install that. And when you install this particular app, it shows up in your chat experience along the left-hand navigation. And from there, you'll have your user private chat, and you can pin the Microsoft 365 chat, and you can have a conversation there. This is very similar to ChatGPT. You have an initial ask or prompt, and then it has a response. And then you have a limited number of responses that you can go back and forth per conversation. So I have 2 replies back and forth of the 30 for this particular conversation. But I want to point out, going back to here, recent activity. This is actually relatively new. It shows previous conversations that you have had. And so now there is a chat history. This just showed up a few weeks ago. And I can now go in and see, okay, here are all my Copilot chats, and I can go back and pick up a conversation that I've had previously and continue that conversation, or I can start a brand new chat conversation and I can go from there. So that gets us started.
Breaking news. Is that your dog that's barking, or is that mine?
I think it's yours.
It's my dog? Okay, I'm going to have to throw her out. Sorry. So I'm still sick. I still can't hear out of this side. So I thought it was coming from your house. I'm going to throw her in the bedroom after I get to this point. Breaking news. There are now 5 ways that you can get to M365 chat. And there's a recent change too in the Teams world. So the 5 ways to get to M365 chat, it's kind of crazy. Microsoft Teams as an app. That application is now replaced with a new experience, in quotes, new. That is an application that's pre-installed in your Teams client when you get licensed. So it's no longer going to be a manual install. You will have to manually pin it if you want. That includes the chat history and Copilot Lab. The second place is office.com, which you're showing right now. The third place is bing.com when you go to chat and you flip that toggle. Fourth place is the Edge sidebar. And to echo what Andy said, or what Daryl said, I like that you say the sidebar travels with you. That's really cool. The fifth place is copilot.microsoft.com. If you go there now is a toggle at the top of that one, along with the new branding for Copilot powered by Bing. So yeah, go to copilot.microsoft. And yeah, you'll want to sign in with single sign-on.
All right, hold on one second. Let me stop sharing
as we freeze his screen here. There you go. You're safe. I'm gonna throw my dog in the bedroom real quick. Just a second.
So I'm just signing in. Of course, I would have to sign in multiple times in the demo. It wouldn't be a demo if I didn't have to do that. So just bear with me for one moment.
Okay, sorry about that. The FedEx guy came by, so that's why she was barking.
All right. I am now signed in. There we go.
Yep.
Copilot.microsoft.com.
So now that toggle says work and web. Web is Bing Chat Enterprise. Work is M365 Chat. So for your bar trivia, there are 5 places now to get to M365 Chat.
So let's actually dive into
Yeah.
to the M365 chat and the experience here. I know there's a couple of
Yeah.
questions in the sidebar
Oh my
about the
gosh.
sidebar. I'm going to
Yeah.
circle back to that in just a
Phil's going to
moment.
find number 6. It's also coming to Windows. too. Good call,
So
Phil.
um, we have said this is the most powerful Copilot experience that we have. Why is that? Because this one is a central place that allows you to connect into all the different apps and services. You can catch up on your messages and chats from Microsoft Teams. You can get information from your Outlook calendar. You can summarize email and conversations coming from Outlook. You can reference content and files that are in OneDrive, SharePoint, and Microsoft Teams. You can have it catch you up on information from specific people, whether it's emails, chats, files, and more. And then you can also have it do things like summary um, um, and interact against files and content that you have. If you don't know what to do here, don't fret. It's actually super easy. Go down here and click on View Prompts. This is going to open up a preview of Copilot Labs, and these are some prompts to get you started. That's what these are. These are initial prompts to get you started, but you can click on View Prompts, and there are more prompt ideas for you to sort through. And if you find one that you like, you can bookmark that. You can save that, and then it'll be in your saved prompt section, and you can go back and you can reuse it. Now, the other thing to point out about this, if you're getting, or if you're new to this, or if you're coming from like maybe the Chat GPT world and you want to know like how do I talk to it, you can go to Copilot Lab, and then with that, you'll see featured prompts. You can explore by the various products that you have, and then you can leverage these prompts, and it'll tell you like the application that it might apply to. You can even sort by apps, and there's prompts that are tested to generally work across like all regions and all scenarios. So these are great starting points to kind of learn how do I talk to how do I talk to Copilot wherever I happen to be. So take advantage of Copilot Labs.
Yeah. Yeah. 2 gaps that I have on Copilot Lab for anybody from Microsoft who may be watching in the future. First of all, Excel is not in the drop down list. So if you go there expecting some Excel prompts, they're not there today. Second of all, I'm really hoping that Microsoft builds this out to maybe be more customizable for your organization. Right now, out of the box, you can filter by app and you can filter by category. I'm kind of hopeful that like maybe we'd be able to add like user personas or, things like that that are kind of more like specific to your organization, or if you could have an organizational library of prompts that are specific to like the company, the business that you do. Um, I hope that Microsoft's going that way. I don't know of any path that they're doing, but I do know that this authenticates. If you go to it like on a phone or something, it asks me to log in. So I'm suspecting that Microsoft is probably going to enhance Copilot to be a little bit more personalized than hopefully just, saving the prompts that they give you. But definitely Copilot Lab is something to bookmark and be able to have at your fingertips when you're new to Copilot.
Yeah, I would agree. I really want to be able to do some customization there, but I love the bookmarked prompts, like to Daryl's point there. But I also like it just gives you an idea of how to talk to it. Prompt engineering is
Yeah.
it's an art and a science. It definitely takes some back and forth and some time to be able to learn it. But they're giving you a starting point, and that's what this is all about, getting you over that starting point. So let's actually dive in and see M365 chat. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I want it to get me caught up on something. So I'm just going to ask it, I'm just going to ask it, what's the latest on Jolly Roger Java? Now, bit of background on that. That is an email conversation that I generated using AI. I had it assumed two personas and go back and forth about a marketing plan for a fictitious coffee shop that it also helped me to imagine, called the
Hmm.
Jolly Roger Java Coffee Company. It's a
Hey,
pirate-themed
Andy.
coffee shop. It has a memorable experience for coffee lovers. I did this live in a workshop at a conference not too long ago. It promised that not only were we going to have a pirate themed coffee shop, but we were going to have a life size pirate ship in the coffee shop. So,
Hey, Andy, can you do me a favor and zoom in on your browser a couple notches?
yeah.
Okay. Before somebody posts in the chat, I was gonna say, like, let's make it a little bit bigger. Hopefully that's easier to read.
Yeah. So, what's the
That's
latest on
awesome, man.
Jolly Roger Java? Now, what it actually did, I'm in Microsoft 365 chat. I'm
Hmm.
Microsoft 365 home. It went and it actually found that content and it's given me the references and tell me where that's coming from. I have a document around that. I have some interview questions for an ad campaign. I have a PowerPoint presentation around that. There was also an email conversation around that. And so it's able to go and pull all that information together. So as I'm doing that, notice it's giving you some follow-ups automatically. It knows contextually, hey, you're talking about a coffee shop. What are the most popular drinks? I'm kind of curious to see what it's going to pull from that because I had Copilot help me create a fall
Hmm.
menu for drinks as part of a presentation. I'll show you that in just a little bit. So it's telling me that it can't find any from here, and that's a very common part of the experience. You're going to ask it for something, and you're not always going to get a return off of it. But this is one conversation that we've got going in here. It's part of the chat experience, and we can go back to Copilot chats, switch over to a new conversation, or go back to an existing conversation
Yeah.
and the sidebar there.
If you go to that existing conversation, go back to the Jolly Roger one there. Um, you'll notice at the end of the prompt where it says AI generated content may be incorrect, there's a 1 of 30 and a 2 of 30. Those are called turns. So whenever you send something and it comes back, and you send something and it comes back, you have 30 of those basic turnarounds that you can do before it forces you to do a new chat. So that is a way that it's designed in a way to keep it on the rails, if you will. After you get past like 30, the current models of large language models, they tend to hallucinate wildly and kind of go in weird places. So they do limit you to 30. And at any time that you want to start a new conversation, you would hit new chat at the top. That doesn't mean that you have to get to 30 and then start a new chat. If you want to kind of go a different direction suddenly, it's best to start a new chat, because otherwise it's going to constantly be trying to like understand the context of what you were talking about before. And if you completely change gears, you might confuse it a little bit. So that new chat, you want to use that kind of strategically.
I like using multiple conversations. I start
Yeah.
one conversation here and then take lessons learned, maybe go to a new conversation and kind of pick up from there. Or if I know I'm going to have a pivot, maybe I go to a new conversation, have that pivot over there, and then come back to this conversation and take those lessons and then continue within the turns to minimize the
Yeah.
hallucinations. All right. So I'm just going to bounce back to new chat. I just want to show a few different things here, just some of the capabilities. So we just saw, I asked it, what's the latest for Jolly Roger Java. You can have it reference specific files and do some things. So like I'm going to say, I want to write an email to my team, about priorities for the next quarter. Now it's given me some recent relevant documents here. But you can just start typing. You can't see it underneath here, but it says just start typing to search. And so I can do that. And now you see it's like narrowing that down. So I'm
Mhm.
going to tell it, okay, let's reference this particular document. You can also do a / and then it'll, as part of the conversation, and it'll pull up that same menu. It defaults to files, but notice people, meetings, and emails. So the / is kind of let me add something to this. And yes, it is possible to use this across multiple files, which is really powerful.
Yeah.
We'll go ahead and send that. It's just going to go to the document, pull back some key points, and draft an email. And I'm going to fact check this. I'm not going to read this verbatim, but I would go back and fact check this to verify that the information is actually correct. Looks pretty good just at a glance, but you can still prompt against it. You can go back and say, well, can you add more detail on the new locations or the customer retention, or there's a couple of suggestions that are contextual, but you can go back and continue to prompt against that. So that's an example that I just wanted to demo here that shows working with having it help you to interact with existing content. I think that's kind of what I've seen as part of the program that I'm in and trying to like roll this out is people are trying to leverage it against existing content, but they're not really sure how to go about doing that. Whereas Microsoft is like, hey, this will get you over the blank page. And people are like, that's a barrier in and of itself. Like, what do you mean the blank page? I don't start from a blank page. I start from, an existing template or a statement of work, or, we have a predefined contract format that we want to work with. So I wanted to show that example. You can use it against something that you already have in that way, but you can also, brainstorm and have it help you to come up with new ideas, and then use that as like the starting point to go and work with someone else.
Using existing content is really powerful, especially if you had, like what you were saying, Andy, like I've told people in my own organization as well, like, what does good look like? Try to identify something that, like, this is the best RFP I've ever done. It's been super successful. Then what you can do is, like, where that's at. In your Copilot prompts, you can say, write me a new RFP for such and such client. Use this one as inspiration. And then it will, like, kind of pull out like some of the things that were good about that other good deliverable that you had, and it will use them. Two things I wanted to point out as well. I'm just going to like do quick fire tips at you as I see them. Open up your recent chats here. I am so glad that Microsoft brought the recent conversations, because like I was really struggling not being able to go back. Two things about this. First of all, Andy, I'm hoping that you can show that you can rename those chats. So if you go to the ... next to it, you can click edit, and you can actually rename that chat if you want to.
It's giving me an issue. There we go.
Yeah, is it not coming up? There we go. So you can edit and rename it. And you can also delete, but the rename is really helpful for my fellow technologists that are watching. If you are the person who does demos, what I've done, so we don't have to like sit here and wait for it to, to wait for it to generate. I've created like my top 5 favorite prompts, and I put them in a chat message, and then I renamed that chat demo, so that I can always just go to my demo and it's like already preloaded for me. So that's a tip for the technologists. The second thing I want to point out about recent chats is the lifetime of those chats relies on your Microsoft Teams chat retention. So if your organization is set to 24 hours of retention for that particular chat, those chats will go away pretty quickly. If you're 30 days, you might be able to keep those chats for, a little bit, like a month. Or if you have nothing, then they'll just stack up and stack up. So I did want to point that out as well for the admins that are out there. This follows chat retention in Teams. So that's a good one. And I'm checking for like more questions and stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point out to make there. While you're checking for more questions, a couple other things just to point out that are really helpful. It can help you summarize my last meeting. It can go and pull meeting notes. If there were maybe a transcript or something available, it might be able to to pull that and then get you ready for the maybe another meeting in the series that you have coming up. But you can also just ask it things. So like you can go in
Mhm.
and say, I'm doing this like on the fly.
Yeah. So don't correct that spelling, just send it as is.
Yeah.
You'll notice that like he spelled Microsoft wrong. That doesn't matter. Copilot doesn't care. It still figures it out for you. While that's loading, there is one question here, Andy, from Daryl. Daryl had to leave us to go to something else, but he asked about the sidebar chat. When you're
Mhm.
using M365 in the sidebar, are you able to use the context of the browsing window, the website that you're currently on?
So I'm going to ask it.
And I'll just leave that up so the video knows what we're
Yeah.
answering.
I'm just asking it to summarize the page that I'm on, and you see work content and chats cannot be seen outside your organization. It says it's combing through documents and chat, and it's looking for summarize the page, and it's telling me that it's not specific enough to provide a summary of the content that is here. In the testing that I've done, I haven't been able to use the Microsoft 365 chat to be contextually aware of the page that I'm on, but I have been able to use Bing Chat Enterprise to be contextually aware of the page
Okay.
that it's on.
Okay.
If
We've
that's
disabled that at
changed,
my organization, so I didn't know the answer to that one.
yeah, if that's changed, I haven't seen M365 chat be able to be contextually aware of the content that's on the page that it's on from the sidebar.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Cool.
So here you see we just did kind of like we would with like Chat GPT. We just asked it for something. It's not specific to any content that I own. It's not specific to email files or anything like that. It's just a general query against information, and that also brings up another point. I'm going to expand this, and it's pulling some of this information. It's referencing a document, the early access program. There was a digest on October 13th where they briefly explained how Copilot actually works with the graph. It didn't make a call to the internet to do that. And so that's another thing to point out. You have plugins available, and one of those plugins is to turn on web content.
Mm-hmm.
And that will allow you to prompt against the web. So I'll just ask it, the same question. And
I wonder why it's grayed out.
yeah,
Maybe you have
the
to
copy and
refresh or
paste
something.
didn't activate it. So now
Oh,
I'm
okay.
asking it the same question, but I've enabled the plugin for web content.
Mm-hmm.
And see this one, we could compare it to the previous response. It looks like it's going to be pretty similar, but it should be able to pull back from web content. Now, this particular prompt, it didn't ask for, or it didn't give me any references like any blog posts or
Yeah.
Microsoft Docs
Could
articles about
you?
where it got that. But you do have the ability to turn on web content, and I believe admins can turn that off if they want.
They can. Can you turn? Can you try like asking something like, "What's the latest news with Joe Biden?" or something like that, to see if it can pull like current news or something like that. And while you're typing that, so there's a good question from Abdul here that he was saying, you know, with the Copilot, like extensibility and plugins and things like that, we're talking right now about the plugins in Copilot. That is one side of the equation, right? So there are plugins that you can deploy that are either, I know Microsoft said they're going to support OpenAI plugins. They're going to support, there's plugins that have message extensions. So, like a traditional Teams message extension, in-house Copilot plugins that will be able to have like adaptive cards and stuff like that, as well as graph connectors. So if you use Microsoft Search in your organization and you're doing graph connectors to connect to like ServiceNow or other types of things like that, you will be able to extend Copilot to use those other sources. That's in an M365 world. If you want to be able to use Copilot type of functionality, but outside of the Microsoft ecosystem, potentially somewhere else, there was a new feature that was announced at Ignite 2 weeks ago that is Copilot Studio. That's basically the rebrand and kind of the future of Power Virtual Agents. With that, my very limited understanding, you'll be able to create a Copilot using Copilot Studio that then you can train it on specific websites and specific uploaded text files and things like that. But there's an entire plugin ecosystem there where you'd be able to plug into other resources. Then you publish that Copilot chatbot as a website or as a chat experience that you can embed on a website. So I don't know much of what I'm talking about right there, but hopefully that kind of helps you at least with what you can go search for. I think Andy, you've taught like workshops and stuff about Power Platform, so you probably know more.
Yeah, the capabilities are going to be a little bit different over there. I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head. Copilot Studios is what you're going to want to look at, and then there's some, I believe, craft connectors that you can use for external sources. But that's the area that you're going to want to go in and maybe even look at Power Platform in order to connect with data that's outside of the Microsoft ecosystem.
So what we found here is that it looks like the web plugin doesn't work,
It's
or not right now for you.
Yeah, it looks like it's disabled by
So
my administrator. So that's what's happening
yeah,
now.
if you disable it at the admin level, it'll actually gray out that switch. So for those of you guys who are administrators, there's a new admin dashboard. I personally don't have access to it at EY, but those plugins do show as toggles that you can turn them on or off for your organization. And there's like very few right now, but you can disable the web plugin if you want to. One reason why you may need to in your organization is the web plugin. The like disclaimer or terms for that says that it uses the consumer EULA basically for Bing to make those searches. So it's not the same protections as Bing Chat Enterprise from what I understand. So that may lead you to kind of reconsider if you want that web plugin at this time, or if you want to wait for that to be a little bit, more on a more secure channel. So yeah, Phil, Copilot Studio I think is going to be really cool. I created my own Copilot to this week, like Wednesday, where I pointed it at learn.microsoft, tech community, and adoption.microsoft. And then I uploaded or I like attached some of our like privacy information, like about, requirements and stuff like that. And I created my own Copilot that I could ask risk and privacy questions about Copilot. So it's pretty meta, but I was asking it questions that our countries were asking me, and able to, to give me some ideas of how to answer those questions from the various countries.
So let's keep moving forward because we got a lot to cover and a number of other demos to potentially go through. I did want to put, this is from the service descriptions of the Copilot Microsoft 365 chat experience, summarizing chats, emails, and documents, prompting against that conversation, and then things like brainstorming, ideation. It's really powerful for that. But from that one entry point, you're able to connect to your files, your emails, your chat, your calendars, your content, and that can really serve as your virtual assistant. The thing that I do want to point out is that it's limited in its ability to create things. So like it was able to help me start drafting an email, but notice it did not open Outlook and create the email. It gave me the option to copy that and go and start my own draft. It will not add an event to my calendar, and it'll summarize information coming from that. It will not respond to a chat, but it will summarize a conversation that I've had. It will not draft a brand new document for me, but it will allow me to brainstorm and ideate against that. So the creation of content from there is not possible, but it gives you information and ways to interact with that content. And that's very, very powerful.
That is something that is coming soon, though. Microsoft announced at their Surface event in September, and I don't think they gave it an actual name, but I'm calling them action buttons, where basically Copilot is going to be able to detect, hey, you're drafting an email. So it's going to come up with a button at the bottom that will say open in Outlook, and it'll send that output to Outlook. Or, hey, I want a slide outline. It will detect that and then offer to open it in PowerPoint. So that is coming at some point in the future. Something to look forward to, along with like the Outlook Sound Like Me feature, things like that.
Yeah. All right. So we've done briefly intro into Microsoft 365 chat. I think what we need to pivot into next is Microsoft Teams. That's
Yeah.
from my experience when we're rolling this out and working with new uh, colleagues in this platform. The next logical place to go is to Microsoft Teams, and so we'll
Yeah.
pivot over there. And I recommend you start off with Copilot in Teams meetings. So what we're going to do is I'm going to get my screen set up. We're going to briefly do an intro so we can cut this, and then we'll move
Yeah.
into the next part. All right. So in this episode of 365 Deep Dive, we're going to talk about Copilot in Microsoft Teams. We'll start off with the Copilot experience in meetings, and then we'll talk about what Copilot can do in chat, as well as some of the other experiences that are native to Microsoft Teams. So when we talk about Copilot in Teams, the first logical starting place is to take advantage of it in Teams meetings. There are a couple requirements for that currently. But once you start working with it inside of Teams meetings, you're going to find it super helpful for things like in-meeting recaps, generating meeting notes, actionable items, and then being able to ask questions against that meeting. A requirement, though, is that it needs to either have a transcript running or you have to have the Copilot without the transcript feature to use this. And the Copilot without the transcript feature is actually relatively new. So with
Hmm.
that, let's go and take a look at Copilot in Teams. We'll start with Teams meetings. So John and I are actually in a meeting right now with one another. Hopefully, it's the recording was actually started, and that should have been.
You forgot to start recording.
It's okay. We'll circle back to it. All right, recording's going, audio's being picked up, and our meeting's actually running. So in the meeting experience, there's a call out at the top. You can bring Copilot up. And what that's going to do for you is allow you to do the things that are going to pop up in this menu bar here. You can recap the meeting, list actionable items, suggest follow-up questions, what questions are unresolved, list different perspectives, list the main ideas, and generate meeting notes. It's pulling that information actually from the transcript. And as I mentioned, there is the option to use Copilot without transcription. I'm not exactly sure how that works because it's something that's relatively new. But there's a couple of meeting policy features we'll talk about in just a moment. But as we're in this meeting, I'm the host of the meeting, so I'm actually able to use and leverage Copilot against it. I invited John to the meeting, and John is a user that is not licensed for Copilot, so he's not going to be able to leverage it. He shouldn't be able to see the Copilot option at the top, and he shouldn't be able to use Copilot against the meeting. However, I can use it, and as part of that, I can share what I get from the Copilot panel, maybe through chat or maybe through a Word document, a OneNote page follow up, Microsoft Loop. I can share that content with John. Now, as part of this, you'll see it's telling me these are the key topics. Andy demonstrated how to use Copilot to recap. It tells me where that is in the transcript. It tells me the timestamp that's specific to that, and it gives me three main topics. And then it's got an auto suggestion, list the actionable items, suggest any follow-up questions, but I could also ask specific questions against that. For example, does it work for non-licensed users? I just mentioned that a moment ago, so it should be going back to the transcript and pulling information related to that. And you see it says, Andy explained that John, who is not licensed for Copilot, cannot access the Copilot in the meeting. So
Yeah, let me throw my screen on real quick just to show you guys. So I am Megan Bowen. I'm in a different tenant, different organization. As you can see up at the top here, I don't even have a Copilot button. So you don't have to worry about like, oh, if I license my users, is it going to show Copilot and then they're going to get an error message because they're not licensed? You don't see the button if you're not licensed, and you don't see the button if you're external. So that kind of clarifies like what does the other side of the house see versus what does the person who has Copilot see. Now Andy, he can take that response there. He could copy it and he could put it in the chat, and then I'd be able to see it. You know, it's kind of a takeaway artifact at that point. But yeah, you won't be able to see it if you're not licensed. So I'm thinking, Andy, do you want to end this meeting and then we can show the recap of using Copilot after the meeting's over? And then I'm happy to take you through the ephemeral transcription version if you want to, and we can show the differences, because this is something I've been testing in my organization as well, is kind of that Copilot without transcription. So I can kind of speak to that if you want, and we can show recap after this meeting's over. But you can see like, oh my gosh, we've been transcribing for what, like 2 minutes or 3 minutes, and it's already pulling out that much detail of like, oh, here's what Andy said, and here's the action items and all that. Like, holy cow. Imagine a 1 hour long meeting that you don't have to take notes for anymore because Copilot's got you. Like it's game changing. This is, in my opinion, this is the biggest value add for Copilot right off the bat. It's just kind of mind blowing how good it is. So, so yeah, go ahead and end that meeting, and then we'll take a look at the recap and see what happens. It might take a little bit for it to generate that recap, but one difference is if you're using transcription, so let's call this traditional transcript, because this is like just recording and transcription. You've been doing this for years. If you do that, then the transcript is part of the meeting, right? It's an asset in the meeting. You can go to the recap, you can see the actual transcript, you could download it, whatever. You have a button at the top that says Copilot when you have a transcript. So Andy can click that and he gets the traditional chat experience along the side. And what's cool is it remembers what he was chatting about like during the meeting. So it retained that according to your chat retention in Teams. But this is personal to Andy. So that you're not, don't worry that like, oh my gosh, is somebody going to see someone else's prompts and all of that? That's not what's happening. What it is this is his personal chat is brought into the recap as well, and he can keep chatting after the meeting is over, which is pretty cool. So you can ask it some other things if you want, and it's going to only know up until the point the meeting ended, right? Or until transcription got turned off. So if you stop recording the meeting, you won't get a transcript anymore, which means you won't be able to ask about that part of the meeting. So it's dependent on whether or not you're transcribing. So yeah, list the action items, or yeah, he's asking for like, what's the next steps?
I just asked it for what are the next steps for non-transcription. Learn how it works and share it with the team. Show the differences and benefits of using Copilot without transcription in another meeting.
Yeah.
And that actually came from Megan, which is John.
Exactly. Yeah, which is John. Okay, you want to see Copilot without transcription?
Briefly,
Or you want to see something else
before we
first?
transition to that,
Okay.
this is a private meeting. This was scheduled from the team's calendar. It's a private meeting, me and external to John outside of the organization. I was able to use Copilot against this as a private meeting. For those of you that use channel meetings, this is as of recent, it was not available in channel meetings. You can use Copilot during the channel meeting, but when the meeting ends, Copilot's not available through the recap tab like you see it here in a private meeting. That might change in the future, but at the time of today, it's not available in a channel meeting after the meeting is over. So, pro tip: capture your Copilot summary and meeting notes and action items and everything you want to do before you close that meeting out. Because as soon as you end that meeting and that experience, You're not going to be able to Copilot against it anymore. Now, manually, the meeting's over. Maybe you did transcribe it. That's a file. You can download it as a Word doc, drop it in your OneDrive, and then you can use Copilot against it there. So you can go back and you can have that experience there. That's kind of a workaround for it. But today, or as of recent with channel meetings, you can't use Copilot after the fact.
Yeah. So that pro tip is very important. It also is going to come in handy in Copilot without transcription, which is the exact same rule applies. Phil said he's teeing us up, I think. Phil said, "Hey, Microsoft's going to allow recap without transcription," and I think that's what we showed next. Is like if your organization is worried about transcription and like I don't want people doing this and all that, let's schedule a new meeting and then we'll not transcribe it. Instead, we will change a meeting option to allow something else. So he's going to call this like, I don't know, something else like Copilot without transcription test. So do that. We're going to add like Megan to it or something. Then it's going to fail to send to me probably. So I'll let you set up the meeting there.
I'll just send it to myself.
Okay, cool. Okay, so Andy is setting up the meeting, and this feature is part of meeting options. So he could either go to the meeting options at the time of scheduling it, or after the fact, if it's like on your Outlook calendar, you can click the link in the body of the invite to go to meeting options. Only the organizer and co-organizers can adjust these types of settings. So don't worry about some random attendee adjusting this, only the organizer. At the very bottom, you have this new feature called Copilot. And you can choose, do I want Copilot with transcription or Copilot without transcription? This is controllable by your administrator to set a default. So you can't disable it at this time. In the admin center, you can just choose if with transcription or without transcription is the default option. Now, what this is going to do, if you select without transcription, is that it will create what's called an ephemeral transcription, or it will transcribe the meeting while the meeting is going on. But when the meeting ends, that transcript, it goes away immediately. So there's no getting back to it. It's not retained. It just goes away. It's like RAM versus ROM, right? So what happens is also you cannot get to this transcript inside the meeting directly. So if Andy goes into this meeting, he goes to more at the top and goes to where he would actually open the transcript. So go to like record and transcribe. There's no open transcript right there because you can't access it. So so it's doing it in the background. It's going to get rid of it when the meeting ends or the last person leaves, but he's able to like use Copilot during the meeting while it's active only. Couple other things to point out. So in the top corner, the top left corner, you see the little shield icon, you see the little sparkles. That means AI is here. So if you mouse over that, that is going to let everybody in the meeting know that has a Copilot license. It's going to let them know, hey, by the way, you can use Copilot in this meeting. So that's your visual indicator that someone has turned on Copilot without transcription and that Copilot is there to help you during the meeting only. The other thing to note is the little banner right there at the top of his Copilot chat. It points out that Copilot is only available during this meeting. So that's reminding the person, if you go away from this meeting, you won't see your chat anymore. You won't be able to ask questions of the recap, all of that type of stuff. It's literally just while it's live and you're part of it. It's a little bit like captions in that way, where it's like, if you leave the meeting and then come back into the meeting and start captions, it's going to only help you from like that, that little window. You're not going to have those captions after the fact, right? So totally transitory, totally, ephemeral. What else about transcription? One thing, whether you're transcribing or not transcribing, if you have scheduled a meeting for a block of time, say you've done like 30 minutes, when there are 10 minutes left in the meeting, everybody who has a Copilot license is going to get a pop-up bubble at the top of their window that says, "Hey, did you know you can use Copilot to recap this meeting?" So you're actually going to get like a nice prompt that's helpful to your users to say, "Hey, do you want to use Copilot?" That happens 10 minutes before the meeting ends, whether you're using Copilot with transcription or without transcription. What else? Is there anything else that you can think of about this that you're wondering, Andy?
No, but I can't wait to get the transcription of this from YouTube so that I can summarize this into a how-to document in my
Yeah,
environment.
right. Yeah, no problem. We've been doing a lot of groundwork to figure out like what is going on here. Um, Abdul has a great question again in the chat, which is, does Copilot have the ability to detect languages? The region I work in, people use English and Arabic for conversations sometime in the same meeting. For somebody like me, will it be able to record the notes in that other? So I have not been able to test that, Abdul. That is something I definitely want to test with my users. So we're getting ready to expand to more users than we have in the past in other countries. So I definitely want to check that out. If anybody is using Copilot and knows right now in the chat, if you could let Abdul know, I will send that on so he can see it. I'll put it up on the screen. But I don't know what languages it's able to detect and understand, like, hey, if this person was speaking English and this person was speaking Arabic, is it going to say, oh, so and so said this and so said that? Is it going to give it to you all in English, or is it going to mix it? That's a really good question. Hopefully somebody from our global audience can help with that. Whew. So yeah, that's a lot with transcription or with meetings in general. Basically, the big takeaway is you can do it with transcription. You get the benefit of using the recap after the fact to ask questions, and it saves your conversation according to your chat retention. There's also Copilot without transcription. That is helpful if you've got concerns about enabling transcription at your organization. You can still use Copilot in that type of world with that other feature in meeting options. So hopefully that clarifies things for you guys. And yeah, so Andy's able to pull that from the transcription. It's mentioning the transcript, but Andy, if you like click on those references, it's not going to take you to it to actually say like, oh, here it is. The other thing is, I have found that you can't trick it into giving you the transcript. So I've asked like, what, give me word for word what was said, or what did this person say? Like, it didn't give it to me exactly that way. So it's smarter than you being able to like prompt engineer your way around stealing the transcription. So,
And last pro tip, because of the temporary nature, it is helpful to copy and paste that into whatever your documenting tool of choice is. But note, when you copy it, it will tell you, hey, this was generated by Copilot. Be sure to check this for accuracy.
yeah. Yep. Phil says multi-language on the point of multi-language. Copilot started talking to him in French without asking, so I guess it can speak multiple languages. That's pretty funny.
Keep that in mind in a bit.
Okay. Dave has a question. Is you're talking about the transcription, like what was spoken in the meeting. What about the chat meeting or the meeting chat information itself? In my experience, and Andy, yours might be different. In my experience, when you're talking to Copilot in a meeting, it's only using the transcript, not the chat messages. But the chat is like a separate thing in the meeting. What I have done, because I don't transcribe hardly any meetings in my world, what I've been able to do is use Copilot in the chat interface that we're going to show here probably next, to ask questions of the meeting chat. So for instance, I did an onboarding this last week, and there was a ton of questions coming in the chat. My team was helping to answer the questions as we were going. I went to the meeting chat after the meeting was over. I opened up Copilot and I said, create me an FAQ. And it just basically grabbed everything out of the meeting chat and gave me an FAQ. So in my experience, it doesn't mix it together, but you can like do recap, and that's using the transcription. You can chat about the chat, and it knows about the chat. So I hope they bring that together a little bit better. Have you been able to get it together, or is it the same for you?
Same for me.
Okay.
And two, I was, as we were discussing that, I was demoing that. I went from Copilot to chat and I put in a message over there. And
Mhm.
then I came back to Copilot. And I want to point out it cleared Copilot out. It cleared the conversation out when I closed
Yeah,
it to
you
go to the
can't
chat
even
and then come
close and
back.
reopen
Yeah.
in the meeting, and it'll wipe it.
Yep.
So
And I asked it a question specifically referencing a keyword or phrase that I used in the chat window. And you can
yeah.
see it doesn't have any information that it can reference. We haven't mentioned out loud what I said in that chat conversation. It's not showing up over there as part of it. It is strictly against the transcription or the temporary transcription
Yeah.
that it has. Now
Now, can
we'll
you
talk.
end the meeting and go back to the chat and show Dave where that's at in the
Yeah,
meeting chat?
so we'll end this.
Okay.
All right, and then I'll go over here to chat, and we're looking for this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the thing that I talked about right over there. So you see that there is something there, and then I can open up Copilot here, and it needs more
There's not
conversation
enough chat. Yeah.
to to generate a response. So let's see. I don't.
There might not be another safe spot for you to do that. But basically, if you've got a
Yeah, this
chat
one
that's
will.
nice and long, you will be able to ask, even if there was no transcription, you'll be able to talk about the chat. So,
No, I'm gonna do one more thing. We're getting very meta with this
y-
because now we're transitioning from meetings over into chat, and you can summarize and work with a conversation. So if you have a
yeah.
group conversation, you can open up Copilot as part of that group conversation. This one's actually based off of a meeting, but I could bring it over here. That being said, I'm going to go into M365 chat, and I've had a
Mhm.
conversation going on. So I'm going to say like summarize my last meeting, and I
Mhm.
just want to see what it's going to pull back from that, even though we didn't have like transcription enabled, but there was a chat associated with that. So we'll give this just a second.
Yeah, and I actually did this. Yeah, it's not doing the very
It's
latest
not the
meeting.
most recent last meeting, but it
Yeah.
did pull a recent meeting. The
Hmm.
title's correct. It does tell me that there was an external guest that doesn't have a Copilot license. Named them by name. I
Hmm.
never said their full name in the in there, and then we explained the insights. So it was able to go back and find that. Now I'm going to ask it one
Yeah.
other question.
And while you're typing that, you can actually use the slash command to mention meetings as well. So I did that earlier today in my M365 chat. I mentioned the meeting I scheduled on Wednesday and asked for an FAQ, and it just did it for me. I didn't have to go find that chat and ask. I did it in the, central interface that Andy's showing.
So in that particular meeting where I asked it a thing about something that's near and dear to my heart, it's not finding that reference.
Cool.
All right, let me. I
Yeah,
want to transition one
let's.
more time, so let me stop sharing my screen for a second.
Okay.
So we briefly covered chat, and so the chat summary can be accessed from M365 chat, or you can go into the chat itself in the upper right hand corner. You can select the Teams icon, and you can use Copilot against that group chat that you might have had.
Hmm.
But you also have the ability, in some cases, or people are going to have this question rather. Can you use the Copilot against teams and channels? And I just wanted to pull that up on the screen and show in my tenant currently not available. So like I have, files and conversations, and I have things going on in this team, and the channels that are here, but it's not going to be able to. Copilot's just not supported there yet, but that is on the roadmap. Microsoft
Hmm.
has said they are going to be bringing Copilot to channels to summarize your threads and your conversations, and the sharing of documents and the content, and maybe
Yeah.
extending into the channel meetings. But it's just not available where I'm at right now.
Wasn't that shown at Ignite? I think you guys might want to go look at Ignite
Yeah.
to see that, what that's going to look like.
All right. Are we ready to pivot to the next part?
Yeah, yeah. What do we got on the slides to keep us on track?
Yeah, so we need to head into the Office apps next. So
Okay.
we've done Microsoft 365 chat. We've done some with Teams, high level, but we want to spend a little bit of time on the Office apps. We're going to start with Outlook, and then we'll transition Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and we'll wrap up things with Whiteboard and Loop.
Cool.
So I'm going to go to the Outlook section. We'll do our kickoff intro so we can chop up the video nicely for everybody, and then we will pick up from there. In this session of 365 Deep Dive, we're going to be talking about Copilot in Outlook. Copilot in Outlook is going to allow us to do some really helpful things, such as drafting a message, getting started, uh, crafting a reply to an existing message, helping us to summarize a long set of threaded responses. But Copilot's also going to help us to coach, to work with our tone and the formality of the response that we're going to generate it. So let's dive in to Copilot in Outlook. So I'm in Outlook for the web. Now, you can do this in the new Outlook desktop client, but that client is relatively new. It is an update that is very similar to Outlook for the web, the one Outlook vision that Microsoft is currently rolling out. I'm going to do this from the web experience, but the desktop experience would be similar. For those of you that are using an older or classic version of Outlook, it is not supported. Copilot's not supported there currently, but it is on the roadmap to be released for that client sometime in the future. That is TBD. So with that, let's dive in and talk about some of the capabilities that we have with Copilot here as it relates to maybe a conversation that we have. Now, I've generated a whole conversation between two different people with AI, just going back and forth, and they're talking about some capabilities as it relates to Microsoft 365 apps and services. So let's say I wanted to generate a brand new message. Go ahead, hit new mail. And when I start to draft my message right away, I can hit the / or I can draft with Copilot right in the body of that message. But I can also go up to the command bar at the top, and you see I can draft with Copilot there, and I can also do coaching suggestions to write better emails. So we'll just start off with the draft option here, and this is the equivalent of talking to ChatGPT. I can tell it what I want the email to say. And so I can start delivering a conversation. Now, this is very generic. I'm referencing something that I have some documents on, but I'm not referencing the documents specifically. I'm also mentioning, hey, we're going to do coffee and we're going to do, some winter specials. So there's going to be implied some creativity, some ideation in this. So let's see
Hmm.
what it says. Now, we're experimenting live in front of a studio audience with this, but we're going to try to tie it into some existing content in just a minute. But this is kind of how you're going to step through it whenever you get hands-on with it. So right away, it's AI-generated content. It's pretty generic. Hey, everyone. Hope you're all doing well and staying warm. Want to bring some exciting news to you. Jolly Roger Java has just launched their winter specials. Now, I didn't tell it any winter specials. It went ahead and took
That's
the
pretty good.
liberty of, and let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. It went ahead and took the liberty of creating some winter specials: the peppermint mocha, the gingerbread latte, the caramel brulee, and the eggnog chai. Hot ice or blended versions, so it's accurate. Oh, we're apparently offering a 10% discount. That's news to me.
Dang, my
And then
dog.
don't miss the opportunity. We're open every day from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And we hope to see you there. And then it did sign that as me. Now, this is the starting point for this content. If I'm not happy with it, I can regenerate it right from here. I can discard it entirely if I want, and then I can go back to the original prompt right up here. I actually kind of like what it did. I think that was actually pretty cool. But it's
Yeah, now you're gonna have to go. Now you're gonna have to go to M365 chat and ask for recipes for those different drinks. How do I make these?
hold on to that thought.
Okay, all right.
All right, so I'm going to keep that. All right, so you see, it gave a greetings, it gave a salutation, it gave the body, it used bullet points where appropriate.
Pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty smart, like getting started. Now, going back to this, not only did it give like the recipes, but I mean, it said, hey, rich and creamy chocolate with a hint of peppermint and some whipped cream on top. Like, you can tell it's been trained pretty well. But going back into that, you can see, that's the initial content there. Now, what I want to do is I want to go up here to the Copilot option, and I want to go to Coaching by Copilot. I want to get some suggestions, and now it's analyzing my message. Now, it created the first one. This could have been something I created, just something I did a brain dump on. But now it's going to go back and it's going to offer suggestions on how it thinks it can make this information better. So it's telling me the tone could be more
You're going to create a
professional.
robot war, having Copilot critique Copilot. You're going to create Terminator right now.
So it's saying the tone's a little too casual and informal for a business communication, and it can it's saying that we could update off of that. So I keep that in mind. I'm going to go back and do yet another new message. So I'm going to close this out, but I'm going to go back to home and I'm going to do another new email. Now I'm going to go back to draft with Copilot
coaching
here.
is really, really cool. I also wanted to point out that as you're writing an email, there's a nudge that will pop up at the bottom that will tell you, hey, you've been writing for a while. Do you want to use Copilot to coach you? So it is going to recommend itself to your users. This is something that came out about halfway through the EAP program, and I think it's a really awesome feature add to Outlook.
Yeah. I like the suggestion to, this is long and wordy. It reminds me of a Chappelle Show skit where it's like, wrap it up, B. It's like it's popping up. So I'm going to go back to drafting with Copilot, and I told it what I wanted it to do here, but I want to go to this guy in the lower corner here, the generation options. When I start to do this, we can tell it the tone and we can tell it the length that we want this to take. So this is a medium length response, and then it's going to be in casual. But we can take some liberties with that. Let's make it a poem, and let's make it medium. And we're going to do something similar to what we did in the previous one. So this one was about, Jolly Roger Java just launched their winter specials. I'm just going to do some copy and paste just for the sake of time. All right. Oops. Hold on.
Control Z.
Yeah, well, I'm on a Mac on a Windows, so it's a whole thing.
Nice.
All right, so let's go back. All right, so I want to make it a poem. I want it to be medium. Jolly Roger Java has just launched their winter specials in the voice of a pirate.
Perfect.
So I want to see creatively what it's going to do.
This is going to transform marketing forever.
All right, ahoy, me hearties! It's Andy from Jolly Roger Java.
Oh my gosh.
We just launched our winter special, so don't you wait. So it is definitely rhyming. It's mentioning the similar drinks as before. It did it in the form of a poem, and it took on the voice of a pirate. I love it. These are really fun demos.
That's awesome. Now, something that's going to be more useful in the real world is that tone where it says make it a poem. They're adding a new feature that's going to be sound like me. I don't specifically know all the details of how it's going to do this, but apparently, using the Microsoft Graph, you've got all the data of every email that's in the Microsoft Graph that you've sent. Copilot's going to start to understand how you talk. Do you use a nickname for yourself? Do you have a similar sign off? Do you say the word dude a lot? It's going to like keep that in mind, and it's going to transform its draft to sound more like you instead of more robotic. So that's something that's coming hopefully soon to the Outlook experience.
So, brief story about that. I've done a demo on this previously, and in the process of this, someone asked about the sound like me, and
Hmm.
they're like, "Can you have it assume a different avatar?" And I had to ask avatar, and they're like, persona. I was like, "Oh, can I make it sound like a pirate?" That's where this actually came
Oh,
from. This was
perfect.
part of a live demo I'd done at one point, and that's where I learned um,
I'm
a
gonna
little bit more
steal
about
that.
my tone. But to
Yeah.
your point, the sound like me is looking at are you casual in the way that you respond? Are you more professional, informal? What's your tone? It's also
Hmm.
looking at your word choices, and it's looking at are you a long or short writer. It's doing text analysis. That's something that you can do with like almost any AI tool. You can give it a
Yeah.
sample of your text, and you could say, "Hey, do text analysis on this to be able to rewrite and have consistent rewriting around that." And it's really powerful. What it cannot do is assume the tone of your boss or another colleague within your organization. Can you make it respond as a
Yeah.
pirate? Absolutely.
Act
But
like my CEO. It's not gonna do that.
right,
Yeah.
make this sound like Tony Stark. No, sorry, it's not going to do that, sir.
Phil wants to train it on his Twitter account. Oh man.
So that's just so here's the just a couple of things as it relates to crafting, drafting, and coaching. Now I'm going to go back to previous conversation here. Um, Copilot check-in. This is a message that I was working with previously. So you see, there's a thread going on
Hmm.
here of all kinds of content. And so what I can do is I can say, okay, I'm replying to this content. So now if we look down, you can use Copilot to draft your response.
Yes.
Um,
That's
you
along
know,
with this question. Somebody was just asking, like, what about in the context of a longer chain? How does it do that?
yeah,
This is perfect.
yep. So here we can summarize. I can draft with Copilot, and I can just say draft a reply, and I'm going to be pretty basic with that, and I'm just going to generate that response. So the previous email, thank you for following up with specific questions tailored for Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. And then it's going to say, well, thank you for providing a detailed list. And if like we were to scroll down and look
It's
at
like,
this, you'd
thank
see
you. No, thank you. No, thank you, sir.
I have noticed that it does fall into that trap pretty frequently.
Yeah.
But you can just say draft a reply, and it's contextually aware of what happened in there. Now, I've seen the joke where somebody's like, "Hey, draft this email with Copilot and send it to my colleague," and the colleague gets it, and they're like, "All right, summarize this with Copilot, and
Exactly.
then draft a response," and then the machines are talking to themselves.
Robot wars.
Yeah, so we don't want to get into that pattern, but you can see like with just a simple draft this reply, we're able to like go back and forth as part of that conversation. Um,
Can you show, I want to show something like you're in this email chain. Can you go to the I don't know, like I don't think you'll be able to do it in your drafts, but like when you're on an email in your inbox, you'll be able to do the drop down and say reply with Copilot, and then it will give you suggested replies based off of that, where it would say, so actually, like, go up to the top there, in your menu bar. It looks like the Copilot icon went away.
Yeah, for some reason it did on this
Yeah,
particular thread. Let me
at
stop
least for
sharing
me,
for a
maybe
second. I'll
because
pull in
it's a
another
sent.
email.
It might be because it's a sent item. If you had received an email, hopefully you can bring one of those up. But I know it's your actual environment, so be
Yeah,
careful.
give me just a
Um,
second.
but what I wanted to say is, like, when you're reading an email, you can get a summary. You also can click reply with Copilot, and it will do recommendations. So, kind of to your question, Abdul, about what about like the understanding of the previous email chain? Um, it's pretty cool because it will give, like, do you want to say yes? Do you want to say no? Do you want to ask for more information? And it will, like, kind of give you choices so that way you can be like, okay, politely decline. You can kind of tell it like what you want to do about it, so you don't really have to like read through the whole thing. It will figure out what other actions you may have wanted to do, so that's kind of helpful.
So you're talking about this email here. So we're looking for the.
Yeah, or can you go just to the top of the thread,
So
like
I
the
got two
whole
sent
thread?
items at the top of the thread.
Yeah, click like one above that, like at the very top of the thread,
Yeah,
for
this
like
is
the
a
whole
sent
thread.
item.
Go up to and just click like the whole banner at the top. Yeah, okay. Well, I think it's just because of our demo. But when you're
Yeah,
using this in the real world, when you receive an email, you'll actually get the option to reply with Copilot, and
yeah.
that's where you'll get those recommended suggestions.
I will
Yeah.
show this while I'm here because this is a thread. Yeah, you see this summary by Copilot option
hmm
show up
I
now.
use this all the time.
So this actually is more for contextual and complex communications. And so
hmm
it generated that summary, and you see we're talking about Jolly Roger Java, and it tells me which message that those actually came from. And so you can show those specific messages, and you can
Yeah.
go back to those as part of the conversation.
And this will also show, I know you can't see my phone, but at the top of Outlook, you get that little sparkle icon again. You can do that summary on your phone as well with Outlook Mobile.
And then the last thing that I want to mention here, I'm going to grab this little bit of text right here.
hmm
All right. So let me just copy that. There's the Ask Copilot. But I'm going to copy
That's
this.
cool.
Now I'm going to move out of Outlook. I'm going to head back to Microsoft 365 chat right over here. And I want to get some information for Jolly Roger Java. Now, that was an email, and I just want to see what it's going to pull based off of that.
So this would be the equivalent of like if you were going and doing a Microsoft search, and
Yeah.
you would get back like you would get back good data, right? It would tell you like, oh, here's sites that have that word and PowerPoints that have that word, but you kind of got to sift through that data. Hopefully, if it works here, you may have to refresh.
Yeah.
If it works here, what's nice is it's going to give it to you in natural language, and it's going to, it's going to be more readable so that you're not kind of, I guess the old school way of searching, the way I would describe it is you're starting a hunt where now you got to hunt for what you want. It pulls the right stuff, but you got to go through it. With this, like it's going to bring it more to the forefront and kind of give you the context of like what it is and why it matters, and then give you the references to that stuff if you want to check it out.
And it's saying that it couldn't find anything for
No,
this
it failed.
particular one. That email is 30 days old. I think we've hit the limit for this. I think there was a limit. There's the chat limit for based within your retention history, but this one's telling me that it's not able to find content, even though we know those emails were there. It's not able to look for it over here, and you can see it looks like it's kind of repeating itself a couple of times. when I've done this demo recently, this worked really well.
Yeah. Yeah, I can attest that too. I do a lot of looking around and trying to find things where it's like I know one keyword, so I'll just throw that at Copilot, and it does a good job of finding things that are like, oh yeah, that's in an email. Because a lot of times I don't remember if it was in a chat or an email or what,
Mhm.
and I could do Microsoft search, but I'm kind of getting just more in the mindset of like I've got this chat right here, it's already like open and in my Teams client, so yeah, you can kind of use it as a search engine as well.
Yeah. Dave's got a question
Yeah,
about the when I right clicked, it said ask Copilot. Hasn't seen that before, so I'm gonna go back and bring that up.
yeah.
And you see, it's
So that's a function of Edge. That's your Edge
yeah.
browser that's offering that. It opened up the sidebar. I'm curious. We haven't seen Copilot in Windows yet. I'm curious if that will be like a system level right click option at that point. But that was coming from his Edge app.
Yeah.
So another reason to use Edge.
All right, I think this is a another good transition point. We've covered a number of different fun things here as it relates to Outlook. So I think the next transition is we're going to move over to Office. Now, I think for this one, what I want to do demo wise is we're going to cover kind of Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Batch. I've
Mhm.
got kind of a cool little demo I want to kind of like step through, and so we'll cover Copilot and Word,
Yeah.
Excel,
And we
Outlook.
covered the overall general capabilities. We covered those in the last session a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
So if you want like high level what it does, that's a really good one to check out.
Yeah. So here we go with the intro for this next one.
Got it, Andy.
In this episode of 365 Deep Dive, we're going to be talking about Copilot for Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. We're going to show you how you can use Copilot to summarize existing content, how you can do synthesis, which is to generate new content based off of existing content. We're going to show you ways that you can draft and revise content as well. And we're going to do this in Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. So it's really powerful to work with Copilot, whether you're in Office for the web or Office for the desktop apps. Now, one caveat to be aware of, content needs to be in the Microsoft cloud, whether it's OneDrive, SharePoint, or Teams, in order for you to be able to reference and maybe reuse it and do synthesis along with it. And if you don't know what that is, synthesis, we're going to show you here. It's actually pretty cool. So I'm going to start off by heading in my Microsoft environment. I'm actually going to go, I could start from Microsoft 365 Home and maybe go to like Word, Excel, or PowerPoint and work from there. If you start from here and you create new content, that content is actually going to be stored in your OneDrive. So just a heads up there. You could go to Microsoft Teams and start and draft new content, or you could go to SharePoint and you could start and draft new content from there. I'll just start here from Microsoft 365 Home. I'm going to do a new blank Word document. So this opens up in Office for the web, but again, you could work with Copilot in the desktop apps. I just like the simplicity of working in Office for the web for getting started. It minimizes my context switching. I can do everything from the web browser, but what I'm going to show you here also works on the desktop. So right away, we're in Word. Now I'm going to zoom in a little bit and notice I haven't written anything down, but it's telling me that I can go ahead and start drafting with Copilot. Describe what you want to write, notes, outline. Copilot can help you to generate a draft to get you started. This is one of the big selling points of Microsoft. It gets you over the blank page. I have an idea, a thing that I want to talk about. Let's just get some words on the page, and then I can really start critically thinking against that,
Mhm.
finessing that document and build out something. But you can also reference your content. So you don't have to start with a blank page. If you have something existing that you want to reference or multiple things that you want to reference, you can do that. I'm going to start with a blank page. So I want to create an outline for Copilot for Microsoft 365. Specifically, M365 chat, Microsoft Teams, Loop, and Office. And I'm just going to tell it the apps that I want specifically. And I wanted to do an outline for this. All right, so I'm going to generate that. Now, I didn't reference any document that I have created already, but it says it's pulling things together. So we're going to let this start to generate that content. Now, I'll be honest, I've done this demo a bunch of times, so it's going to be very similar to some other files that I have out there. I'm going to rename this file something specific so that it's easy for me to reference it in just a moment. So you see here, it's creating a header and some content for each of the different apps and services, and then it's gave an introduction and a conclusion. Now I would go back and check this for accuracy. As I'm doing this though, notice everything's highlighted in blue. That's because I haven't confirmed that I actually want to keep this.
Yeah.
I can go back and edit the original prompt. I can regenerate the prompt, and I can add to it based off of what it's pulled up, and I can say include some specific details. And just going back and looking at it high level, use Copilot to share your screen, audio and video. That's not a Copilot capability, so check it for accuracy when you work with it. I'm going to regenerate it and say use Copilot specific, and I will spell that correctly. Capabilities. Man, I need spell check to type. So let's refine that draft.
You can see the question earlier about how fast is this going to go? It's going pretty fast. You're not doing a lot of waiting. I find that, as you said, when you're asking about something that it kind of has to go through the graph or through the semantic index and find, that takes a little bit of time, right? It has to do that grounding. If you're generating from scratch, it's pretty dang quick. So now, if anybody else has noticed that speed difference between the type of prompts you're doing.
Full disclaimer, as we're doing this, every section in here is very, very similar. It's using that, hey, Copilot, create, and then, document name or whatever. It is doing that for every single app. So this particular example, you can tell it's a little off the rails. So this might be a situation where I don't like this. I'm going to provide some feedback on it. And I'm just going to say inaccurate and repetitive and inaccurate content.
You got spell check there.
Yeah. You know what? I'm just going to send it like that. Whatever. They'll have spell check. They'll figure it out. So I don't like this. I'm just going to trash it, and then we're going to start over. So let's just go back into Copilot. You see the Copilot icon pops up over there.
Yeah, there's a little bit of inconsistency between the apps as well. That how do you activate Copilot? In Outlook, it was having you use the / command. In Word, it was use Alt something to get it to pop up. So a little bit of keyboard shortcuts to remember.
Now, as we're looking at this, there is a Copilot in the command bar at the top, and this is consistent across Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. There are things you can do in the main content, and then there are things that you can do in the side panel. So this is generating some content, and you can tell, again, it's a little off the rails today. I've done this demo a bunch, and it's actually been way more accurate than what we're seeing here today.
So that sidebar thing, in the web version at least, I haven't tested this in the full apps. In the web version, you can actually resize that. So have you found that out yet, Andy? People always talk about I wish it was bigger or smaller. You can actually do that with Copilot on the web.
I learned something new. I didn't know that.
I found that out today.
Yeah.
I saw the cursor change. I was like, wait a second, I could resize that? So there you go. Now you got your money's worth, everybody.
All right, let's do this one more time, and we're gonna say, what is Microsoft 365 Copilot?
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be more generic, and this is kind of the back and forth that we work with. Now we're starting from a blank page. It's the end of a long week. Copilot might be tired.
I know I am.
All right, so this is more relevant.
And this is one of those like concepts that I see about like how to use AI, like best practices or whatever you want to call it. Is one of the things is to iterate, right? So like we're seeing Andy use one of the tips and tricks that Microsoft adoption brings out is like don't just take the first thing. Try to make it work a little bit harder for you.
Uh, so I'm gonna let this go one more time, and then we're gonna transition to a couple other things that are pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. So as this is generating, we just got somebody new in. How do you turn on Copilot? So Copilot at the beginning, we mentioned the requirements. It requires an E3 or E5 SKU. I believe that's going to lower SKUs in the future. They announced at Ignite, but there's a 300 seat minimum at this time. So you do need to be prepared to license 300 people, which US is like $109,000 basically. So there is kind of that minimum. Microsoft has said, in generic terms that they're getting ready to, they want to work more with small and medium businesses to make that, more accessible than requiring 300. But you need 300. It is a SKU that is a standalone. You buy M365 Copilot, and it's MSRP $30 a month per user. So once you have that, you license your people. It will do a process called building the semantic index. The apps will show up in the user's applications when they're licensed, and they're kind of off and running at that point.
So we've done draft a couple of times where we're creating a document. I'm just going to rename this so I know specific what it is. There's going to be a specific reference at the end
Mm-hmm.
of this. That's going to come into play in just a moment. Now, the results here were hit or miss. I've had much more success previously. That being said, sidebar open, Copilot sidebar. I can go in over here and, let's change something. Change the how to use Copilot section. And then we'll see what kind of response it gets. But notice as it's doing that, we can tell it to write about things, change and modify things, to summarize the document, and ask questions around the document. In this
Mm-hmm.
particular case, like the summary is really helpful for long documents because it can definitely give you a very short and concise summary of that. And then also with long documents, asking it specific questions are actually super helpful. I'm going to pivot off of this particular one. I'm going to go back to another document that I've actually created previously. So I'll head back into my files. Here's my coffee shop. I've got, here's my 4th coffee newsletter. Our mission, our market, our revenue model. So you see this one is a lot more detailed. So let's actually go in and I want to ask it in the Copilot panel. I'm going to ask questions about the market. Tell me about the market. And it's on the screen. We should be able to read that, but we want to see the accuracy that's actually coming back. So just looking at that, 20,000 coffee shops, 10 billion in revenue. Man, I wish. 85% of the market, grow by 2.8% annually. I mean, it pretty much pulled that directly from the document. So we're going to do one more thing, and I just want to ask it something that's not on a specific page. So what about the competitors? And I'm going to misspell that, and we're going to see the interpretation coming back. So we're just kind of going through and pressing the keys and showing you a few different things. So we'll let that pull together. The next step I'm going to show you is we can pivot off of this document and we can do something else that's actually really cool. All right, so we have stiff competition. Yep, Rocket Boy coffee, Hyper Warp coffee, and Express Espresso. I love that name. And it actually pulled that back. So you can see now that we're able to ask it questions and pull back content. This is super helpful for really large documents. There's only 700 words in this one, but if this were, a 30-page document, this would actually be real helpful to iterate against. All right, so keep that in mind. I'm going to pivot off of this one. We've seen a little bit of Word. Now I want to show you a couple
things. I did
a
33-page document today, and it was able to work with that no problem. I have run into some limit. I don't know what the limit is like actually, but I tried like a 250-page like tax law document from like Finland, and it did tell me that it was too large, to get everything out of it. So there is some limit, but I don't know exactly what it is. Somewhere between 30 and 200 something pages.
Something for us to track down, that's for sure.
Yeah, might be something to take away.
All right, I'm going to go and I'm going to create a PowerPoint presentation. And before I do that, I'm just going to grab the link to this document right over here. So let me just get the details for this. I just want the path for this particular thing. All right, so I've got that. I've got this document. Let's go and create a new PowerPoint presentation. So we'll open up PowerPoint, and Copilot is a panel option right over here. Hurry up and wait. All right, so now we're opening up Copilot, and it's going to ask us a few things. Create a presentation from a file, and then add a slide about. I'm going to skip creating a presentation. Pretty straightforward. Here's a prompt, create a presentation. It'll create a whole bunch of slides. I want to create something from something I already have. So create a presentation from a file, and I just need to paste in the Word document link. This is the only thing that frustrates me. Everywhere else that I reference a file, I can basically go in and I can use like Copilot, and I can reference, and there's a pop-up, and it allows me to like call the other content. You see, I can start typing in a name, or I can pick from like the drop-down. But here in PowerPoint, it says you need to paste the link here. I wish it did smart lookup like it does in the other parts of the app.
Yeah, seems like a consistency thing that hopefully we can see improve.
All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and send this, and it's going to create a presentation for that. So it's going to look things over. It's going to look at the document. It's looking for header 1, 2, and 3. It's looking for bullet points underneath that. It's looking for paragraph, and it's working for text. So this was a document called Jolly Roger Java. And so you can see it's creating a slide for like our big idea, the market outlook, industry outlook, the market, and there's going to be a number of slides that it's actually going to create. This document is also one that is pirate themed. There's a theme to our presentation here. So I'm curious if the images are going to match the theme of the presentation. So we'll give this just a second, 35%, 52, as it generates it. It should create a slide for each one of those bullet points there. I didn't count that, but it's going to tell us at the end how many slides that it actually created. This is where it's really helpful because I'm reusing content in an intelligent way.
And also, did you guys notice it said adding speaker notes? So it also will add speaker notes for you too, which is crazy. 23 slides.
Yep, 23 slides, and we're just going to scroll through. It created an agenda slide, coffee beans, people, more coffee beans. I'm
It's
looking for pirate.
it's not exactly the prettiest thing, but it got the job done. I think, to be honest, the actual quality, the output leaves a little to be desired compared to like what was shown in the springtime, right? With the woman was like planning her daughter's like graduation
Mhm.
party, and it was like the most amazing, beautiful slides I've ever seen. These don't really look like 2023 slides, So that's something to keep in mind. Is like it's got some room to get a little bit
We're not going to
prettier.
win any awards for our PowerPoint design
Yeah,
presentation, but it's a starting point. And
yeah.
now we've got not
Presentation
only
designers probably don't have to worry too much right now.
right, but for those of us that are trying to get something quickly created
Hmm.
and maybe take something existing and turn it into something else, this is a huge time saver.
Yeah, it's about
I
getting past that blank slide, like you said at the
Yeah,
very beginning. Like, where do I even start? What's the structure? It gets you going.
right. And there's also some intelligence built into it. I'm highlighting this slide right
Hmm.
here. Notice it inserted a table with the average prices and some of the cost information that it pulled from the original document.
Hmm.
So it's putting that into a table-based format, which is really helpful. It inferred that maybe we want to add some visuals to this to break up the monotony of the text inside of it. And so it's
Hmm.
a great starting point. Now, the
Yeah.
question that I've had is, well, this is a blank design. Can I start from a design? In the web, it I haven't had to have it work like that, but I have had success where from um, let me exit out of
Let me
here.
check the
I'm
roadmap
on
real quick.
desktop.
I think there's something about that actually.
All right, so I'm on the desktop. I haven't created anything new, but I'm going to go in and on the desktop, I'm going to create a presentation and I'm going to use like a new design for that. So I got a design set up for a new presentation. And then I'm going to go in from the
Hmm.
desktop and I'm going to say, well, let's create a presentation from an existing file. And this one does pull from, it does show the existing. So the desktop here is actually a little bit more powerful than the web. I've got a
Yeah.
theme set out and I'm well, we can switch back and forth and do like all
Oops.
kinds of different themes. So I got a default theme that I might be working with. But when I go in and I tell Copilot to create a presentation, I'm going to reference the same document. And in testing, what I've seen that's actually been really powerful is because I have the theme that I want. It's going to reference that as it builds out the new slides.
Hmm.
So we'll just wait a moment, and it'll generate this.
So there is the ability to use your organization's template as well. I wanted to bring up the Microsoft documentation about how to create a presentation. There, if you use organizational asset library in SharePoint, so that's a SharePoint that you basically promote to an OAL. You put your PowerPoint templates there. If you do that, then you can say like, hey, create this template, this PowerPoint, and it's going to use your template for your organization. So that's something I haven't done yet. Our organization, we're talking about like getting that going. But if you guys are using organizational asset library, you can use that to your advantage. So I wanted to point that out real quick. See, this is looking a little bit better.
Yep. Yeah. So right away, it did keep the theme. Probably should have done a space pirate theme for this one.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you
Um,
select it and say make it piratey and see what it does?
make the theme piratey. That
Yeah,
is
or
one
just this
thing. I'm
slide, because you can adjust a single slide, right?
Yeah. So like this image, so we can tell it
Hmm.
actually to change the image to space pirates. we'll give it just a second. And this is one of the things that it can actually do. Now, I can't even tell what's in that background there. I mean, it changed the entire slide.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
That's a spaceship.
That's fantastic. Go to designer, if you will. Open up the designer in PowerPoint, and then you might be able to, yeah, do one of those so you can see it side by side. There you go. Beautiful.
So the PowerPoint features are pretty cool. Just showing you from the desktop, but I wanted to get this out there. If you start from an existing design, it will keep that as you build out the presentation and get you over that that really generic one. You can use Copilot to change the images in there. Just highlight the image and tell it to change the image. You can also highlight the text, and you can tell it to rewrite. And so you can use that as a way to maybe summarize and condense. My results have been kind of mixed in the rewrite, and I'll be honest with you. I tend to lean on like M365 chat in the sidebar. I use that, and that works a little bit better for me. And then I just copy and paste back and forth. It rewrote the text. It says it added about customer segments and potential market size and whatnot. But you can see it can rewrite it. Now you can also have it say like add a slide about space pirate adventures to planet Java. And it will insert a new slide in your presentation. By the time it gets it done, you could probably already have the slide inserted yourself. It does, it can be
like almost
a
there.
little slow, but there we go.
See, and it kept like that theme of the whole thing, like intergalactic rivals to establish a coffee shop on planet Java. Like it knows what the slide deck is about. You know. That's pretty
and
cool.
Then, all right, I'm gonna save this.
All
right, so I'm gonna save this back to my my coffee shop, space pirate Java. All right, so I saved that back to the Microsoft Cloud. All right, and then the last thing, like you can use the prompts and you can say, create stuff, understand, edit, and ask. Those are kind of built-in summaries and asking questions and whatnot. I'm going to close this out. I've saved it. It's back in the Microsoft Cloud, and I'm going to go back to like my my OneDrive. All right, and I'm going to go one last time, and I'm going to just do a Word doc. All right, and then when Copilot opens up here, create an executive summary. I'm going to reference recent files, maybe. Let me grab that text real quick. Close this. It really is frustrated today. All right, one last
That's
time.
A connectivity issue. Yeah. There we go. There we go.
All right, and then what I call it, Space Pirate.
I think Space Pirate Java or something. Yeah,
yep,
there you go.
Space Pirate Java. Create an executive summary and then go and generate that. This is really helpful for like going back and forth. I like using this because I can get an idea out of my head into a Word document in an outline. Then I can go and start building a presentation around it. And then I can come back and create a summary or a blog post or a technical document about it. And going back and forth like this, I'm reusing content that I've created and I've modified and I've curated, and I can verify the results, but it's going to save me a whole lot of time in going back and forth between the two.
Yeah, you're creating a package of deliverables,
Yep.
There's a really good question in the chat here from Abdul again. That was, do you know if it can create charts and graphs and flow charts and things like that? I have not tried that,
Not in
to be
PowerPoint.
honest.
If you're
Yeah,
in Excel, it can take table data and it can convert that into a
yeah,
chart or a
visualize
graph.
data.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but in PowerPoint, no, today, to my knowledge, it's not capable of converting graphs and
yeah.
charts and flow charts based off of
That's
data.
something when I've done it personally, I use Chat GPT Premium. I've like used a plugin called I think graph.io or something like that or draw dot something. So I f- that might be a story of like plugins in the future of like a plugin to create diagrams and stuff. Um, I'll have to think more on that because that would be really helpful with like architectural diagrams and stuff.
Since you're asking about charts and graphs and stuff, one last thing, you can convert content
Change it to a
here
table.
to a table. Yeah,
Nice.
use
I
that a
wonder what
bunch
it's
of
going to
times
do
too.
with all that data. Like, holy cow.
uh,
The least readable table ever.
yep. Not the best selection, but like a set of bullet points, it works really
Yeah.
well. All right. Last thing, I've got an Excel file here. It's an inventory list. So let's open that up. This is pre-formatted in a table format, so it does work
Hmm.
best with the table format. But based off of this, I can use Copilot against this particular table. Now, I didn't or use this to create the content. This is just the template that was out there, but I can use Copilot against it, and it's going to allow me to do things like analyze the data that's there, highlight. I've had mixed results with that. Sort and filter, I've had mixed results with that, but analyze has been pretty good.
Hmm.
So we'll analyze the data. Um, oh, so I told it to analyze, and this saying, well, I can analyze something. What do you want to
It's like,
do?
yes, I can.
So insights for the quantity and stock. And so it's saying, well, we could do this particular time a chart around it. Go ahead and add that to the sheet. And it drops it right on top of the table. I've had mixed results with
Thanks,
this as well.
Copilot.
Let's move this to someplace else. All right, so we'll drop it right here, and keep in mind I'm doing this in the web, and
Hmm.
drop that in. But there's the quantity and stock and the reorder level, and it says that they appear to be highly correlated, and then it created the chart around that.
That's pretty cool. I to be honest, I have barely used Copilot in Excel. I'm just not a big Excel user lately. Um, that's pretty nice though. That would take me forever to think of like building that chart. Yeah, I know there's
Yeah.
so many people who are way better at Excel than me, but
Let's ask it which items are flagged for reorder.
mhm. Pivot tables is another one that Copilot is really helpful for. I always struggle with pivot tables personally, and it's really good at creating pivot tables based off of like natural language.
So just looking at this, we're looking for flagged items to reorder. Um, and it's telling me items 1, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So based off of the data, it wants to add that to a new sheet. Said it was added to sheet number 4. And I'm looking, I don't see a sheet number 4.
It's probably because you have one called inventory list, right? So was it sheet 3, or was that something you already did?
No.
I guess it just lied to you.
Yeah, it seems like there might be, you know, a little bit of finicky behavior today. Some of the finicky behavior I haven't seen previously, and I've been working with this like the early access program now for months.
Hmm.
Some of the nuances that we're running into today are not common. It could be the connection. I'm in a virtual machine. It could be internet connection from there to the service. All right. So, looking for any other questions in the chat
I
window.
haven't seen any. You want to jump to whiteboard and loop to kind of wrap it up, or do you want to like revisit whiteboard and loop standalone later in December?
I would really like to spend a little bit of time in those apps, a little bit
Yeah,
deeper.
I feel like they're pretty, honestly, kind of transformational because
Yeah.
like they're a modern way of working. Like yeah, maybe we revisit. I think we're gonna do, what is it, like December 15th or something like that as of our next Friday.
Yeah, I think we got one more lined up for
Okay.
kind of middle of end of December. So why don't we
Yeah.
revisit modern workplace and Copilot, talk about Loop and Whiteboard and the Copilot experience there. I think that would be one that I want to devote more time to it. And we've
Yeah.
had you here for over 2 hours, so I don't know how much longer you all want to go. But
Yeah.
I think that might be one worth revisiting in a few
You've
weeks.
been driving the whole time. So that's a lot, dude. But I really appreciate like like you've done a lot of work to build like a safe little playground, right? With Jolly Roger, Java, and doing all of that. So that's been really helpful. I hope that it's been good for all of you guys to see not only like what you can do in the demos that are like perfectly curated, but a little bit of like what we're finding is actually useful day to day. The things like especially in those meetings, asking for action items, recapping like a meeting chat from like 3 days ago that you missed out on, stuff like that. Those are the ones that are really like value add to me in just like a day to day you know course of my work. So I hope that it really jump started some ideas in your mind moving forward as you guys get your hands on Copilot. I hope a lot more people I'm seeing are getting their licenses and stuff. So it's an exciting time. It's hard to believe though, dude. Like, it is December 1st today that we're streaming this. It is 1 month. It has been 1 month since Copilot went live, and like we filled way more than 2 hours of like, oh, and you could do this, and oh, about this, and oh, here's a little tip. So there's it's kind of insane how much has come out. It reminds me of the early days of Microsoft Teams when it was like
Hmm.
just a persistent chat client, and then all of a sudden it was like communities and channels, and then all of a sudden there was meetings. It feels like that level of innovation coming out of this space, which is tiring but exciting. So, but yeah, thanks for everybody for hanging out with us this whole time.
Even those of you that joined us late, we do appreciate you being here. And yes, um, the currency of Copilot is time. I would agree with that. Copilot gives you time back once you kind of learn the nuances of it.
Yeah.
It really does change your workflow and really give you time back. That is
Yeah.
that is
You have to
huge.
invest time into learning and getting better at prompting and stuff like that, but it pays itself back very well.
Yeah.
So,
So we're going to continue down the Copilot journey. We hope you will continue with us as we continue to revisit it. We're learning a lot. Your questions are definitely helping us to continue that. But we appreciate you coming along with us. Like and subscribe. We got this content going out on our YouTube channels and social media and whatnot. Ask questions. That's what we're here for. We just want to continue to share our learnings because I know we're learning a ton, and not everybody is lucky enough to get their hands on with it. So we like trying to be able to show that. But I think with that, we'll see you again in a few weeks
yep.
as we revisit Copilot in the modern workplace, and we're going to pick up with Loop and Whiteboard, and we'll talk about OneNote as well. Um,
And if
and
anything
we'll go from
changes
there.
the next couple weeks. Cool.
Yeah, we'll see how it
All
goes.
right. Thanks everybody. Have a great weekend. Take care.
We'll see you in the
Bye.
next one.